Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here. We're just so delighted to see students, faculty, staff, and members of the community gathered here to recognize Veterans Day. Several faculty members who have served with us are here today, including veteran emeritus professors who are sitting toward the front and who we especially honor today. To all our current and former servicemen and servicewomen who are here with us today, thank you. You have our deepest gratitude and respect. For over 3 centuries, Yale students, faculty, and alumni have chosen to lead and serve in our nation's military. Reminders of their sacrifices are all around us in memorials, such as the walls just outside this very hall, or in the cenotaph out on the plaza. But they're also woven into the very fabric of our society and our world. In gratitude for their service and leadership, Yale strives to honor and support veterans. We do this through the Yale Veterans Network, a campus group for students, faculty, and staff, and the Yale Veterans Association, an alumni organization. Tomorrow, the Yale Veterans Association will host, in partnership with the Association of Yale Alumni and the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, an 8-hour training and certification course on mental health first aid. We thank the Veterans Association for hosting and sponsoring that. This is a nationally recognized program under the National Council of Behavioral Health, and it's designed for students, faculty, and staff. Yale also supports the Warrior Scholar Project, a phenomenal program founded by 3 Yale graduates. We will hear from a co-founder, Jesse Reising, Yale College class of 2011, in a few minutes. And we're proud of the many students who currently serve in the Reserve Officers Training Corps on our campus. They're sitting here with us today. For their service and sacrifice, we must support our veterans, not only today on Veterans Day, but every day of the year. On a final note, before I turn over the podium, Yale, as I said, warmly embraces its veterans, and we are working hard to reach out to every member of our community who has served. So employees who are veterans can help us with our Veterans Count at Yale initiative by logging on to Workday to self-identify as a veteran if you wish to do so. This is not required, but it helps us to do our best to give back to those who have given so much to our country and our campus. So if you haven't done that, please consider logging on and identifying yourself. It's now my pleasure to introduce Kim Goff-Cruz, Yale's Secretary and Vice President for Student Life, and she will say a few words about today's program. Thank you, Kim. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, President Salovey. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Kim Goff-Cruz, and it is my privilege to be with you here today as we celebrate and honor our veterans. Throughout its history, Yale has been home to men and women who have dedicated their lives to the service of their countries. We join together today to pay tribute to them and also to reflect on the freedoms and privileges that their sacrifices have made possible for all of us. We are honored to have among us students, faculty, staff, and alumni who have served and who are preparing to serve. Thank you all for being here. During our ceremony, you will hear from a staff member, current students, and 2 Yale College graduates. Each has served or contributed to the well-being of veterans, and each is valued as a member of our Yale community. They represent commitment to honor and country across multiple generations and conflicts, and they also represent all of the veterans who are here with us today and those who care for them. We are, as a community, fortunate not only to have our treasured veterans, but also to have now firmly established within the fabric of the university culture the cadets and midshipmen of our Air Force and Navy ROTC programs. The young women and men in uniform are welcome and a common sight on campus as they move between classes, labs, laboratories, their residential colleges, and of course, their military commitments. I am so happy to see so many of them here today, and I want to give a special thanks to their leaders, especially our commanding officers, Air Force Colonel Tom McCarthy and Navy Captain Wayne Grasdick, for all the work they're doing with our students to help them make Yale and the ROTC better. Thank you. In the last 3 years, Yale students have actually increased their activities around public awareness and advocacy for our veterans, and we are really grateful for those efforts. I just want to mention a couple today that you should be mindful of. Immediately following this service, the ceremony, ROT students are going to lead a 30-minute walking tour, so make sure you have your coats. There's going to be focused on Yale's military history, and it will include the Memorial Hall. The tour will leave from Beinecke Plaza near Wall Street at about 1:30. Also, Yale Students for Veterans are again creating this year a field of flags on cross campus. Each flag placed on the ground honors a veteran who's important to someone in the Yale community. So I invite you to visit the installation, write the name of your loved one on the flag, and then have it installed. It's really a stunning display for all of us to see. And finally, before we move on, I want to encourage and maybe even challenge all of us to do something special for our veterans. When today has passed and we return to our very busy lives, I hope and I challenge us all that as we walk in front of the Alumni War Memorial on Hewitt Quadrangle, or we move through Memorial Hall, and we see all the names and the classes and the records of service of our alumni who have given their lives for us, to be who we are as an institution and who we are as individuals. That we will all take a moment, just a moment, to remember the men and women of Yale who have faithfully taken an oath to protect and to serve. And with that, it is now my pleasure to call upon the officers of the Yale University Police Department, who serve as our color guard, to come out. Please stand if you are able, and as they offer the presentation of colors, remain standing, followed by the playing of our national anthem, and then also remain standing for our invocation.
Let us pray. Grand architect of the universe, called by many names, in many languages, by many voices. Today we ask that your guiding hands hold us and all our sisters and brothers in military service near. We are grateful for all who now serve, all who have served, and for those who, in the words of President Abraham Lincoln, gave the last full measure of devotion in service of their country. We are joined in humility, gratitude, and our own measure of devotion, knowing that as we seek to understand an increasingly complex world, we are sheltered by the vigilant service of citizens to our republic. We ask special regard for those who have served, but who have not yet been found and returned home, and for those who have been returned, but who have yet to find themselves at home. We honor our military and ask that whatever is required of them be informed by your infinite wisdom as they honorably and loyally seek to create a peaceful and secure future for us all. Amen.
First, I would like to thank President Salovey, Secretary Goff-Cruz, and others for holding this Veterans Day ceremony. And thank you to Dean Sodi for recommending me to give these remarks. I would also like to thank the distinguished guests in attendance and all of you who are joining us here today. As a psychology major and student of social science, I'm keenly aware that my presence at this university is a statistical aberration. I was born into poverty to an immigrant mother. I spent my early childhood in foster homes, and later, during the housing crash of 2007, experienced the foreclosure of the home of my adoptive family. And as I attempt to retrace my steps to understand what gave rise to my current fortunate circumstances, two variables stand out above all others: military service and generosity. At age 17, right after graduating high school, I left my two jobs as a dishwasher and grocery clerk to serve my country. To be perfectly honest, it was not a difficult decision. The military offered a path to independence and gave me the chance to prove myself. As an electronic warfare technician in the Air Force, I was charged with maintaining defensive systems designed to protect aircrew members in C-17 and C-5 aircraft from radar detection, heat-seeking missiles, surface-to-air missiles, and other threats. To this day, it amazes me the military would place the lives of others in the hands of a teenager. Yet this extraordinary trust instilled me with confidence. It calls to mind a quote from the former Secretary of State, Henry L. Stimson, who once said, "The only way to make a man trustworthy is to trust him." I worked with men and women from all backgrounds, along with service members from other countries, including Qatar, Germany, and Iraq. The military had a place for me. Perhaps ironically, the stability of the Air Force contrasted with the turbulence of my upbringing. I was a high performer, selected for early promotion, and earned numerous accolades for my service. But these external markers of accomplishment were nothing compared to the realization that I could rise above the circumstances of my youth, that I could prove to myself and to others that success is not limited only to those born into fortunate circumstances. In short, military service was absolutely essential to helping me recognize my own potential. I used to think college wasn't for me, it was for other people, for those who were smarter or richer or came from a certain kind of background. Certainly not for a poor foster kid. Yet here I stand. After matriculating to Yale, I thought that my life experiences, both before and throughout my service, would add a unique perspective to my college education. And this has been true. But in addition, it turns out that my education at Yale has also given me a unique perspective on my military service. For example, in one of my history classes, I learned about the progression of European militaries in the 18th and 19th centuries, from peasant and mercenary armies to professional militaries. As this advancement occurred, the wealth and security of Europe increased. The combination of a more prosperous society along with a disciplined military led the bourgeoisie to regard the military with derision and even contempt. For them, soldiers were a product of a bygone era, relics of a primitive age from which enlightened individuals could escape. It is difficult not to occasionally observe parallel sentiments in our society today. Another lesson I've taken from my education here is negativity bias. Our attention is more easily captured by bad events. This, in my view, is one reason why it is important to set aside special occasions to remember the good. It is tempting to lament the flaws of the military or the mistakes of this great country. It is easy to overlook the sacrifices of our sisters and brothers who have willingly taken up arms to defend what is so easily taken for granted. I'm reminded of a conversation I had with an elderly Polish gentleman when I was stationed at Ramstein Air Base in Germany some years ago. As we discussed travel, politics, and the U.S. military presence around the world, the elderly man said, "As you enjoy your visit in any charming European city, do not assume that its pleasantness is somehow magically guaranteed to last. Some of these states can go bad at a moment's notice, as history has shown time and again. If we're being honest, the American military has played a major role in maintaining relative peace in the world." This brings me to my next point. 3 months ago, I discovered the secret to happiness. While I was employed as a summer researcher at Stanford, I met with a professor named Albert Bandura. Professor Bandura is the most cited living psychologist in the world. Near the end of our conversation, I asked the distinguished 91-year-old professor, "What is the key to happiness?" And he actually gave me the answer. Now, I don't remember what he said, but it was really good. In fact, he told me the key to happiness is helping others. Generosity. There is nothing that can replace the feeling one gets when one knows they have contributed to the success of other people. Pursuing happiness as a goal in and of itself does not work. It can only come as a side effect of what we psychology geeks call prosocial behavior. Veterans take care of one another. For many of us, it is not enough to defend our country. We seek other ways to provide value. The veterans at Yale who came before me contributed to my path here. The folks associated with both the military and Yale understand Albert Bandura's point. For me, this has consisted of working as a mentor for other veterans interested in higher education and tutoring disadvantaged school children at New Haven Reeds. Moreover, I researched thought and behavior at the Yale Mind and Development Lab. Ultimately, I would like to apply the tools from my education to help people, whatever their circumstances, reach their goals. Beyond service, many veterans have made it our duty to stand as examples for others. And if other people out there learn of our stories and understand what is possible, perhaps they, like me, will exceed their own expectations. Thank you all, and happy Veterans Day.
When I was asked to introduce Jesse, I was delighted. Jesse Reising is a graduate of Yale College and Harvard Law School and is currently serving as a federal prosecutor in Chicago. After a severe injury sustained in the Harvard-Yale game prevented him from commissioning as a Marine Corps officer, he founded the Warrior Scholar Project to help prepare veterans for academic success in the liberal arts. I first met him 3.5 years ago, a few days after I left the Army. I was attending the Warrior Scholar Project at Harvard before I matriculated at the University of Oregon in the fall. The program he had developed along with Chris Howell was meant to teach critical reading and academic writing through Tocqueville and Thucydides, but it was really so much more. My time there showed me that I was academically capable of more than I'd imagined, and Jesse and Chris inspired me to apply to Yale as an Eli Whitney student that next year. If I hadn't attended his program, I truly believe that I would not be standing here today as a senior at Yale.
Thanks, Jared, for that kind introduction. I do have one bone to pick. It's the Yale-Harvard game, not the Harvard-Yale game. But other than that, it's much appreciated. Thanks, Jared. Now, I feel especially humbled to receive this honor here today because for me, Yale is where it all started. I had no intention to join the military before I arrived at Yale. But it didn't take me long to realize that if a guy like me could be plucked out of a hardscrabble Midwestern town and given an opportunity to attend Yale University, then America truly must be the land of opportunity. I learned about the foundations of democracy and the brilliance of the Federalist Papers at Yale. But the moral lessons were at least equally as important as the academic ones. The Yale Creed for God, for country, and for Yale resonated deeply with me. I stood in awe as I ran my fingers across the names inscribed in the walls just outside the doors of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. And as I viewed the cenotaph on Beinecke Plaza, my knees buckled under the weight of everything that those who had fought on our behalf had secured. It was Yale that compelled me to say, "Send me, I need to do my part." Now, ultimately, as Jared alluded to, it was not part of the plan for me to serve my country in the military. While tackling the running back of that school in Cambridge that shall remain unnamed, I tore 2 nerves in my neck, which left parts of my right arm and shoulder permanently paralyzed. Now, if I had to do it all over again, I'd give my entire arm for this place. But losing the Marine Corps as a result of my injury left in me a void that I relentlessly try to fill every hour of every day. Fortunately, Yale equipped me to serve my country in ways that could help fill that void. We ran our first Warrior Scholar Project academic boot camp here at Yale in 2012. Serving 9 veterans. And we've now put over 700 veterans and counting through our academic boot camps at more than 15 campuses across the country. During the Warrior Scholar Project, veterans like Rob and Jared wrestle with classical texts and engage with some of the world's greatest minds on themes of liberty, equality, and democracy. They realize that a deeper love for one's country is achieved through critical appreciation rather than blind veneration. And they realize that here at home, they can still live in pursuit of the principles and ideals that they put their lives on the line to defend overseas. The Warrior Scholars like Jared and Rob, they leave the program not just ready to become great students, but prepared to live up to our highest hopes and dreams for them to become members of the next greatest generation, who are remembered not just for the courage with which they fought, but for what they accomplish after they return home. Now, I couldn't be more grateful for the Yale family, which has provided steadfast support for our mission. Yale family members Sam Chauncey, Nick Brady, Charles Johnson, Glenn Greenberg, Mary Beth and Peter Oppenheimer were early believers in our mission, and their incredible support continues through this day. Yale professors Norma Thompson and Marla Geha, John Gaddis, Mike Fotos, and many others helped shape the minds of these warrior scholars. And my co-founder and Yale classmate, Chris Howell, is one of the most talented and dynamic people with whom I've had the privilege to work. And of course, people like Jared and Rob give us all hope for the future. Thank you again for this honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is military tradition to stand as I read the award citation. Please join me. Attention to orders. Citation to accompany the Gold Valor Award to Cadet Amanda E. Lloyd. On 9 July 2017, Cadet Amanda E. Lloyd and 3 friends were at Lake Ontario Beach when they heard screams for help coming from 5 women and children in rough water where the South Sandy Creek enters the lake. Cadet Lloyd and her companions acted quickly to organize a rescue attempt and alert authorities to the danger in response to hearing cries of, "We are going to die." From swimmers who were 200 yards offshore and struggling in 10-foot-high waves, strong current, and undertow. Cadet Lloyd entered the water with 2 life jackets, swimming to a struggling young girl and taking her in tow. Knowing her fellow rescuer had entered the water without a life jacket, but unable to see him in the high waves, Cadet Lloyd located him by calling his name. Upon swimming to his location, she found him holding 2 additional young girls. Using both life jackets, Cadet Lloyd and the other rescuer fought against the undertow and brought the 3 distressed swimmers to shore where a 3rd rescuer was waiting. Cadet Lloyd and her companion re-entered the water with the life jackets, swimming to the 2 adult women several hundred yards from shore. Each rescuer took 1 adult in tow and began to swim to shore. Joined by a 3rd rescuer en route, they managed to get the 2 distressed women to safety. 5 women and children are alive today due to the quick and selfless actions of Cadet Lloyd. By her prompt actions and humanitarian regard for her fellow human, Cadet Lloyd has reflected great credit upon herself and the United States Air Force.
Let us pray. Eternal God, we give thanks for those who gave their lives in the struggle for peace and justice. We are grateful that there are men and women in our world who struggle for such noble ideals. And now we would dedicate ourselves to ensure that their sacrifice was not in vain as we struggle to make our world a better place for all people to live. We beseech you to give us the strength we need as we seek to fulfill your will. Amen.
Well, everybody, that concludes our ceremony for today. Thank you again so much for coming, and to all of our speakers, and congratulations again to those of you who received tributes and awards as well. Many thanks to the Planning Committee and to our ceremony participants, as I said, including Tom Duffy and the Yale School of Music Brass Band Quartet. Thank you so much. And again, I just call your attention to the other programs that will go on today, but again, have a great day and thank you for coming.